Thomas was despaired, distraught and devastated. He did not know what else he could offer her. What was he to do? He will lose all when she goes. His inheritance, his lands, and worst of all, Annabel herself. And as he thought that, he knew what he could offer her next. It was a desperate, hopeless move, but that was all he had. He came to see her again. She was surprised, but thought that perhaps he miscalculated and thought she was leaving already, and had come to bid adieu. "My lord, have you come to say good-bye?" "Good-bye, my lady. I thought you were leaving in 3 days." "Indeed. Why come you then?" "My lady, I will relate to you. My father is so desperate to have you stay that he says he will disinherit me if I fail to convince you. Will you not stay for my sake then, my lady, to save me from such a fate?" "No, my lord, I have told you that I cannot," she said, though her heart was breaking for it. Thomas's heart was fixing to break. He knew not what else to say, so he decided to go with his desperate move. "So, will you leave me thus, my lady Annabel?" "My lord is very presumptuous to refer to my departure as leaving him." "Will you not stay? Have you no pity on me?" Annabel's eyes were beginning to well with tears, as her heart was wrenching for Thomas's sadness reflecting from his eyes, and yet she still managed to say, "My father bids me go, and I must do my father's command, and no man's bidding can surpass my obligation to my father." "Unless he were your husband," blurted an anxious Thomas. "Unless he were my husband," concurred Annabel, "but such a man is not in being as of yet. Though he will be soon," she thought grimly about her impending betrothal to Robert Macmillan. "What if I were to become that man?" asked Thomas, heart pounding in his chest. Annabel could hardly refrain from laughing, as she knew they were both intended for others, and because she believed he thought very little of her and her family, and she put her hand to her mouth in poor attempt to disguise it. "You laugh at me?" asked Thomas, hurt to the core. "How cruel my lady can be," he said, trying to catch her gaze and affect her thus, as he knew he could, and he approached to hold her waist, brushing his lips against hers. "Say that you will be my wife, Belle. You would be able to stay and live with me." "Why would I want to?" she said, pushing him away, because she knew that her ability to resist him would vanish if they kissed. "Because you love me. I know that you do," said Thomas, now more confident, as he saw her body reacting to him, her erratic breath, her flushed cheeks. "No, I do not," lied Annabel, who was now struck with the realization that this might actually be true. "I cannot be your wife." "No?" asked Thomas, his voice cracking. I had thought that, but I suppose..." He stumbled over his own words and thoughts, again stripped from his eloquence by Annabel. He was shattered, heartbroken. All he could manage to say was, "I will bid you farewell then, my lady, and a safe journey. I will come again tomorrow to say my final adieus and turn to go." Annabel was in a state of utter confusion. He proposed marriage! Surely this is only a joke, an attempt to make me stay for his father's benefit and his own, and perhaps an attempt to seduce me. I could see that he was stirred to passion, she thought, and blushed, recalling how her own body was stirred. The day came and went, and the morrow came. Tomorrow was their scheduled departure. Annabel was trying to keep busy, arranging things, but she was heart-heavy and sad. She was soon lost in her own thoughts. If Thomas had only tried to seduce me, I would have easily been tempted. Never has a man made me feel so. I feel so wretched and yet excited beyond measure at the same time whenever I am in his presence. Now he proposes marriage, and it made me want to consent. But I cannot believe he means to marry me. He proposed it for his father's benefit and his own, nor can I accept him, if he is indeed genuine, without causing harm to my family. He says he will come to bid farewell, as he will not be permitted to escort us to the harbour. Perhaps he will try to... No, he is far too gallant for that. She was roused from her deep thoughts by Anne's voice telling her that she had a visitor. "Thomas!" she cried, in a mixture of surprise, excitement, and alarm, quite forgetting her decorum. She was referring to him as Thomas in her mind. She signalled Anne to leave them alone. "Why come you here so early in the morning, Thomas? I mean, my lord," she said, using her formality as a shield from her own emotions. "Annabel, my lady, I see that you have all but finished packing. Will you really go?" he said, searching her eyes. "Yes," she said, thinking that she wished now, more than ever, that she did not have to. "And not be my wife?" asked Thomas, making a final, desperate attempt. "No, I shan't," said Annabel, curt, as she felt a lump building in her throat, and she feared she might cry if she spoke more. This felt like an arrow piercing his heart to Thomas. He knew that he loved her. He knew this was his last chance, so he said, "If you won't be my wife, will you let me kiss you, at least?" Annabel felt her face turn red. She wished him to kiss her. She now realized that she had been wanting him to kiss her since she came to Calais. She wanted to be held and touched by him so much that it was almost painful, and it made her forget for a moment about Cecily, about her father, about her betrothal to Robert, and she said, "Yes, Thomas." Unable to contain himself any longer, Thomas quickly moved toward her and circled his arm around her waist and held her face in his hand. Now he was kissing her tenderly but passionately and pushing her back against the chamber wall. Annabel felt her body ignite with passion. It was like what she felt when the boys at court looked at her, and what she felt when she looked in on her teacher's tryst, and when Robert scooped her in his arms in the greenwood, combined and multiplied tenfold. Thomas was beside himself with the love and passion he felt for Annabel. "Belle," he said, "will you be mine? Do you consent?" Annabel thought that this was obvious, that he understood very well that she did. "Thomas, don't torture me." "Say that you consent, Belle. Be mine," he said, desperately. He did not wish to have a misunderstanding with her. He wanted to be sure. "Yes, Thomas, please," she pleaded with him, and so he moved her, dance-like, to her bedchamber, all the while still holding her, and lay down with her. "Thomas," she whispered, driven to utmost madness with passion and expectation. He helped her disrobe, removing her gown and chemise, taking great care with their delicate laces, increasing her impatience. He then took off his tunic and hose, remaining clad in nothing but braids. He stroked and kissed her body, and made her cry out with pleasure. Again he asked, "Do you consent?" "Yes, Thomas," she begged, almost. He lay on top of her, leaning on his arms, his broad chest just above her. He rocked gently against her, and she felt like she would lose herself in an ocean of pleasure, but then he stopped. "Thomas," she whispered, "don't stop." "Belle, I love you." "Thomas, please, I love you, Belle. I know that you love me too." "Thomas, please don't stop," she whispered, holding his gaze, seeing all his love and ardour in it, and it drove her to the wildest realms of passion. "Belle, say it," he said with an air of urgency. There was no escaping or denying it now. "I love you, Thomas. I do," she said, tears pricking her eyes. "Marry me." "No." "Be my wife, Belle." "Thomas, please, I can't." He kissed her again, stroking her, rendering her unable to speak, her body limp with pleasure. "Marry me, Belle," he said quietly, holding her gaze, pleading her with his eyes. What could she do? "Yes, Thomas," she acquiesced. He was unable to refrain from it any longer, and in an instant he had her maidenhead freely and willingly given to him.